Hi, people. Like I said, I'm going through my channel these days and sort of editing old videos, perhaps taking away some that are a bit repetitive. And I know I've spoken about this subject before, but I hope this will be a particular angle that I haven't necessarily taken. And that is, it's about bullying, but more specifically, how do we define bullying? Now, on the surface, this is quite straightforward. The general idea would be that you have usually in a school context a pupil or a student being picked on by other students, and it's usually plural. There is what I call a caricature bully, which is sort of like you get in fiction, usually in old comic books, comic reels, and it's a bit misleading. It's usually an older child who's bigger. That is not usually the case, at least not from what I've seen, what I've personally experienced. Usually, or more often, I would say bullies are about the same age. They could sometimes even be younger, and they're in a group. It's more plural than singular. I don't think it's very common that you have one bully in a class who kind of gives the kids who stand out a hard time. More often, that bully might be the ringleader, but they're backed up by others. I think that sort of bullying is much more common. But this word bullying itself, really, we need to look at it because it's one of those terms that does have the risk of being thrown around. A bit like, misogyny is one, but there's a few others. There's words that have sort of become weaponized and they're thrown around a little bit. Now, what bullying is not is people in a position of power being questioned. Um, Criticizing people is not bullying. And I think we need to be a little bit careful that we don't get into a situation whereby we come from a point of good intentions, i.e., wanting people not to be bullied, but that then translates into um, people not being scrutinized rightly so. Let me explain what I mean by this. I think people who are in public life need to accept that they, particularly if they're in a position of power, like MPs, judges, I feel that judges are the unaccountable and others. If they are in public life, they're in a position of power. Now, with that, they have a big influence on people's lives via legislation, via the decisions they make. So I don't think that someone criticizing an MP in strong terms should be considered bullying. Now, obviously, if it then translates into a harassment campaign, like constantly badgering the MP with nasty messages, trolling them, harassing them, stalking them, that's obviously a totally different matter. But I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, for me, it's like I feel very strongly about the issue of bullying. I hate bullies, and it's something I feel very strongly about. But I also feel strongly that it's important that terms like this are not misplaced. Um, Another example would be, let's say you have a demanding boss, or you have a company that has high targets, and perhaps one employee is struggling a bit and they're falling behind. It doesn't mean they're being bullied. It maybe means that there's just high standards. So again, we have to be careful not to conflate the two. Now, I feel that one problem in this country is we've had public figures in recent years who have normalized nastiness. I'm thinking of the likes of Gordon Ramsay, Simon Cowell, certainly Jeremy Kyle. In the case of Jeremy Kyle, recently he's been working on talk radio, and there's been efforts to have him kicked off that. I don't think he should have a platform. I think the scandal with his show should be enough to mean that he doesn't deserve a platform. I mean, the guy's not even a journalist, so yeah, I've made no secret of my dislike of Jeremy Kyle. But just to briefly look at that, um, some people might say, well, Nathan, some of his guests were bullies. They were wife beaters, they were yobs and so on. My issue with the Jeremy Kyle show was never that there wasn't unpleasant guests. I always made the point they should face justice. They shouldn't be put into a TV show as entertainment, and actually they were paid to do so. That's a great irony. Jeremy Kyle fans think that these unpleasant people, these criminals, wife beaters, and so on, were being publicly shamed, and they were, but they were also paid to go on the show. So, make of that what you will. But I do think that certainly television, it's kind of paradoxical. On one hand, certain aspects of entertainment have become more cruel. On the other hand, ironically, this is juxtaposed with a more seemingly politically correct era, and we talk about wokeness and, overt sensitivity. And it's sort of a paradox where both things have happened, actually. What I mean by this is you get shows like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, which, in my view, um, basically popularize mean behavior. If a contestant's not good enough, they get jeered off. I personally find it very uncomfortable. That's why I never watch those shows. I mean, I'm only basing that on the little that I have seen. Um, so on one hand, there's that, and even like if you compare TV from the '90s, mostly it was in good spirits, right? So you had shows like The Generation Game, Crystal Maze, things like that, Gladiators. They were competitive, but they were mostly good natured. Um, One that I liked was Stars on the Rise. So you had people basically imitating their singer of choice. But the audience was always very supportive. Matthew Kelly, the presenter, was always very, the whole atmosphere I think was good. Whereas more recent television shows have focused on this fierce competition. Dragon's Den, Britain's Got Talent, and so on. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the format of competition, but it is very much based on this cutthroat world. Like, you're not good enough, you're going to be jeered off. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I think it sends out a negative message that the only way you could be successful is by being ruthless. I think it's a negative message. That's also why I take issue with Gordon Ramsay's whole approach. I mean, I still say people watch his show more to see him yell at someone than for recipes, in my opinion. Um, so what is bullying? Perhaps that is not as simple to address as it might seem. Perhaps a more simple answer would be making someone feel uncomfortable for no good reason, picking on them because they stand out. Now, that one's quite obvious. If you have a group dynamic and someone stands out and others are gossiping about them or giving them a hard time, pulling pranks and so on all the time, and wearing that person down, it is clearly bullying. Incidentally, I think, particularly in machismo environments, the armed forces, the emergency services, this is a serious, serious problem. And for too often, it's dismissed as banter, something that really infuriates me because I think that there's a huge difference between a generic sort of banter versus targeting an individual. Targeting an individual. That doesn't build character, it doesn't build strength. It is what it is. It's targeting an individual and wearing that person down. People say they should just go along with it or laugh it off or something. You see, the problem is any approach that they take will have the same effect. It won't change the attitude of those who are targeting them. So I think that's a sloppy explanation for it or a sloppy dismissal of what is going on. Um, my attitude to bullying is pretty much like my attitude to crime. I'm hardline. And one thing that I feel has been a big problem in schools in recent years is, and this is not to say it's across the board, but too often there is an approach of treating bullying like conflict resolution. That is to say, you have the bully and you have the victim. Oh well, they're in dispute, so let's just treat them sort of on an equal basis rather than holding the bully to account. And I happen to think that the more serious a bullying, the more serious the consequences should be. Basically, I support a much tougher line on bullies. Again, like criminals, people will say, they'll all have some background story that supposedly explains, or well, it might explain why they are the way they are. Maybe they come from a broken home. Maybe they've been bullying victims themselves. That could all be a motivating factor. Maybe they lack security and they have to pick on others to feel good about themselves. Of course, that's all true, but none of that means that they shouldn't be held to account for what they've done. Um, so I have a real problem with that sort of approach of, kind of this attitude of let's just understand the bully. Let's just, try and understand why they're so unpleasant. Ask them to be more empathetic. Honestly, more often than not, it doesn't work. They treat that attitude with scorn. I think they need to know that there are severe consequences for making someone's life a misery. I really do. Um, but like I say, to me, that is clear cut bullying when someone is being really, really worn down. But simply criticizing someone, even if that's in a strong way, particularly if the person is a public figure, it might not be particularly pleasant, but I think it's legitimate. I really do. I think basically public figures should understand that in public life, they're going to face more criticism than an average person. Now, this doesn't mean that they should be harassed or threatened or anything like that. But, sometimes I see reports like female MPs complain about bullying. Well, are they being bullied or are they simply being criticized? Because there is a difference. And I'm not saying we should question them. I'm just saying that it is important to understand that difference and accept that difference. Um, and you could also have a situation where someone is just incredibly negligent or they're just really hopeless at their job and they're actually slowing down their their colleague, and they're making the working environment difficult for the colleague, and then their colleague has a problem with that. That's not bullying. That's an issue with productivity. Again, I think employers and bosses should deal with it in a professional way, not yell at the person, not take the approach certain chefs do. I'm not just talking about Gordon Ramsay. There was a case in Edinburgh. Now, I have to say the chef denied it. This was a five-star restaurant, but the reports emerged that staff had been scalded, staff had been told, had all sorts of names called thrown at them by the manager, and I do think there is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction in the British public to dismiss these things as if the victim's exaggerating and making it up. I've been in some unpleasant environments, and there's some nasty pieces of work out there who will give other people a hard time or cross the line between being a professional boss and reprimanding someone in a valid way versus being downright abusive. There is a difference, and a true leader knows that difference. A true leader will hold someone to account. They'll say, look, you need to improve, you need to do this in a much better way, otherwise I'm going to have to let you go, versus you're worthless, you're terrible, pinning them up against the wall. This is literally what happened, or what was alleged, I should say, in that Edinburgh restaurant. So, this is why it's very important to define what bullying is. What it is wearing someone down to the point where their life is made a misery. What it is not is legitimate criticism or holding someone to account. So when I talk, for example, about judges having to be more accountable, I maintain that. I'm not saying that they should be personally harassed at their own homes or anything like that, but I do think they need to be more answerable to the public. And saying that I think they're too weak is not bullying. That's an honest observation. That's very different than, oh, I'm just going to give these guys a hard time because I feel like it. So it's very, very important to define this, in my opinion. Okay, let me know your thoughts. How do you see bullying? What is bullying, basically? That's how I would lay it out. I don't think we should label every single angry exchange as bullying or every single criticism as bullying. That's ridiculous. Indeed, that very philosophy would mean that you can't criticize bullies because that in itself would be supposedly bullying. That's how absurd it becomes. So it's all about what is legitimate and what isn't. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you.